Here are the top 10 Pokemon trading card game decks for the month of July 2024. And quickly, some small updates before we dump into it. I'm not taking a dump. Plus, got a haircut last week. I was way more fresh from last week. It looked kind of funny right now. I got a new dog, as some of you guys might have seen on my Instagram story. This is Rosie, a Springer Spaniel. She's about, I think, 8 weeks old now. We made her an Instagram account called Reckless Rosie. She is a little bit of a demon right now, but we're training her. She's a hater sometimes. She's definitely one of my haters. Another update, I've been streaming a lot more frequently on the channel. So if you guys don't want to miss out on live gameplay and just hang out and possibly play me as well, make sure you guys have your notification bell with the subscription button clicked. Let's dive into the top 10 meta decks right now. Starting off at number 10, we have my favorite, or one of my favorites, Miraidon EX. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Miraidon EX. It's still relevant. It is still a solid deck to choose from. All these decks right now that we're going to be covering. The list you're looking at right here was played by Adam Reinhardt at a recent League Cup. If that name does sound familiar, that's because Adam got his entire Worlds invite this year with the Miraidon deck. So here's the most up-to-date look at his personal list. If there's any player out there that I'm going to respect their Miraidon deck list and just give it a go, it's this list right here. I highly recommend it. I've been playing it a little bit this afternoon on the ladder and it feels really good. And this is actually the exact 60 we're going to use for a long, like 2-hour or so gameplay video. So if you want to see how I pilot this deck as a fellow Miraidon maniac, then you know what to do. Hit that red button down below. A couple of new inclusions, as you can see with this list. We have the Iron Thorns EX. This card is fantastic at trying to counter some other decks out there. Blood Moon Ursaluna in here as well. That's been making its way into quite a few different variations of Miraidon. It's just very strong. It's quite a tanky unit. Some other notable inclusions would have to be, of course, the Zapdos, the Iron Bundle, and one thing you're gonna notice is that there's no Vitality Band. A lot of lists have been playing Vitality Band recently, but we have an extra Bravery Charm here, which I'm not against. Bravery Charm is a fantastic card in Miraidon, and it never feels bad to have Bravery Charm in the deck. But if you're going to swap out one of the charms for a Vitality Band, that might be the one inclusion you might want to make. And this is a very turbo aggressive Miraidon deck. Next up, let's get to the number 9 deck, a deck that has no problem destroying Miraidon, especially average Miraidon players, and that is Charizard EX. Yes, Charizard EX is still dominant to this day and has an amazing ability that basically gets to accelerate the energy straight onto the board, and you have a massive beat stick Pokemon that's just going to keep using Burning Darkness turn after turn after turn. The list you guys are looking at right here came in 37th and 57th place by William Azevedo and Pedro Petrucci, two top players in the Pokemon TCG at NAIC, the North American International Championships, which I still haven't posted my vlog from yet, so I'm working on it. Stay tuned for that vlog coming soon. One big thing is that they have Unfair Stamp as the ace spec. Yes, Unfair Stamp has been sneaking its way into Charizard as well. It's not only good in Gardevoir, it's also great in Charizard. And you're typically going to be not taking the first KO, so you can kind of go crazy with a big Unfair Stamp in boss play, or just really destroy them with the Unfair Stamp and see how they can bounce back from that. Let's get to number 8, featuring Dragapult EX. Dragapult EX did not get to live up to the expectations. It did not live up to the hype, but we are looking at the highest placing list from NAIC, played by Chaz Fincham. This list features the Pidgeot engine and Babero engine, so taking notes from the iconic Charizard Torrid pile that everybody has been playing and playing some sort of variation of. This list is heavily teched out with a lot of one-off cards, but of course you have Pidgeot to search out the exact card you need every single turn. Definitely a deck that when it gets set up can really destroy a lot of stage 2 decks out there, because we have the spread damage and big hit damage of Dragapult EX, but then we also have the Devolution in here as well. The Revenge Band is also insanely strong in this list. On to deck number 7, we have Ancient Box. This is the Ancient Box list that placed 42nd place, played by Andrew Kennett, another top player in the Pokemon TCG at the North American International Championships. One thing you're going to really notice here is that they don't have the Miraidon in here as an attacker. Instead, they actually have the Walking Wake. Now, the Walking Wake never actually attacks in this deck either, because it is purely for the fact that Walking Wake has a 1 retreat cost instead of 2 that Miraidon does. So we're running simply 7 energies in here, all dark, so your only attacker in here is going to be the Baby Roaring Moon, which of course is going to have a buffed up HP stat with that Ancient Booster Energy Capsule. The ace spec in here is the Secret Box, which allows you to grab a supporter of your choice, which is huge. Ancient Box is definitely one of the best budget and single prize decks out there. So if those are things you want to keep in mind for when you're picking your deck, Ancient Box might be the way to go. Coming in at number 6, we have Raging-Bolt EX paired with Teal Mask Ogerpon. This deck was played by Josha Teo Young Zeng. Sorry if I butchered your name, I probably got it horribly wrong. They placed 5th place at the Malaysian Championships most recently with this exact 60 card list. Raging-Bolt EX with Teal Mask Ogerpon is definitely one of the top popular decks I've been seeing every single time I pull up to a Pokemon card tournament locally, and I'm sure you've seen it a ton online as well. This deck is very turbo. It's all about going fast and throwing energies on the board as quick as you can with the help of Professor Sada's Vitality and of course Teal Mask Ogerpon. We also have the Flutterman in here too to be a nuisance for your opponent, turning off their abilities when they have one in the active. It also acts as another Pokemon too that your Professor Sada's Vitality can target and accelerate energies on, and you're never going to be sad that their energies are on there because you can always use the energy switch to swap them off onto, of course, whatever you want, or you can just leave it on there because your Raging-Bolt EX is going to go for an attack and you can just discard the energy from the Fluttermane. This is a really annoying deck to play against. It's one of the arch nemesis of Miraidon. If you really do enjoy Miraidon, this is definitely a list I would recommend you check out. My biggest regret for this Pokemon list, or for this Pokemon deck, is that I traded in all of my Raging-Bolt EXs at like bulk rate to a couple of local card shops, and then Teal Mask Ogerpon came out, and then it became this became an actual deck. So yeah, let me know if you regret trading in some cards that ended up becoming very meta relevant than you wanted to build the deck, because I feel it on this deck. Deck number 5 for all my sleepyheads out there, the Snorlax fans. We got the Snorlax stall deck, Snorlax Control. This list was played by Ben Cryer and got 10th place at the North American International Championships. Another very cheap, budget-friendly deck if you want to be known as a player that plays Snorlax. It does have a negative connotation, but it is very strong. It of course gets to feast on Charizard decks, so if you enjoy destroying Charizards, pick up this deck. It would do us all a favor. This deck simply just does not attack. It does not take prize cards. It's all about destroying your opponent mentally and getting rid of all their resources. This deck is often seen as a little unhealthy for the game by a lot of players out there, but I'm amongst the players that thinks it's healthy to have some control decks in the game, especially when it, you know, kind of helps your matchups, or it helps take care of your harder matchups, so to speak. On to deck number 4, another one of my favorite decks to play against, unless it's at the North American International Championships. You'll see why in the vlog. But number 4, we got Lugia VSTAR. This deck is all about establishing Lugia VSTAR on the board as quick as possible using its VSTAR ability, Summoning Star, to bring out those Archeops from your graveyard or discard onto your bench, and then using those Archeops to charge up whatever attacker you have every single turn. The big thing that really makes this deck competitively viable is the ace spec of Choice Legacy Energy, which it activates if your opponent knocks out your Pokemon with damage and they have to take one less prize card. Lugia VSTAR is known as a bot deck, a deck that doesn't take too much skill to play and operate at the highest level. Quite coin flippy at times, it definitely feels like for some players, but hey, if you want to play Lugia, be my guest. Do your thing. Do your thing. On to our number 3 list, we got Turbo Lost Box. Turbo Lost Box is the deck that took 2 of the 8 spots in the top 8 at the North American International Championships, and you're looking at the winning list as well for that tournament, which also didn't just get first place. The same 60 was also in the top 8. This is the list that cooks. This is the list that works, that Andrew Hedrick played, and if you want to play Lost Zone, if you want to go through some mental anguish with those flower selectings, this is a deck you're going to want to pick up. This is easily one of those decks in the Pokemon trading card game that has a very high skill ceiling, where the more time and energy you put into the deck, you're going to get better and better with it as it goes on, as time goes on. You got some amazing attackers in here like Sableye, Cramorant, Blood Moon, Ursaluna, the Iron Hands, and of course we have the newest addition, the newest big one, Iron Thorns. Yeah, a lot of decks cut the Raikou V and the Seal Stone, and now we have Iron Thorns in here to disrupt your opponent's abilities when it is in the active. On to number 2. This is a list that has been insanely popular. This deck has been growing in popularity the last couple of weeks. Every single time I go to a tournament, there's a couple people playing this deck, and that is Regidrago VSTAR. This is a deck that I think is going to do very well at the World Championships. It's a deck that can be really turbo, and so your games are not going to be that long. it's less likely you're going to tie. This deck gets to abuse the strong ability that Teal Mask Ogerpon has, but then you also have an onslaught of great dragon attacks at your arsenal, like Dragapult EX. We got Raging Bolt EX as well for that big one-shot attack. You got Noivern EX to deal with those pesky basic-only Pokemon decks. This really is like a dragon toolbox kind of deck. So if you love dragon Pokemon, if you love the Regis, Regidrago VSTAR is in a fantastic spot, and it has to be in order to, you know, take this number 2 spot away from Lost Zone Box. It's been performing really well. It's a deck I really want to try out as well. So yeah, we're gonna give this a go in the next couple of weeks or months. The list you're looking at right now was played by Jacob I, that got 14th place at the North American International Championships. Now, one thing to note is they have 2 Dragapult EXs in this list, and I've seen the different type of dragon Pokemon like change over the tournaments and over the weeks have gone by since NAIC. There's also a new Kyurem dragon type Pokemon coming out soon, which basically cooks Lost Box. If you're struggling with Lost Box right now and you're still playing this deck, when that Kyurem comes out, you're going to be able to cook Lost Box alive. So yeah, be ready for this deck to be way more popular than it already is, because I've been seeing it everywhere. I play like 1 to 2 per tournament now. And real quick, before we get to the number 1 list, I want to give an honorable mention to Roaring Moon EX. This is the Roaring Moon EX list that I believe got 7th place at the Japan National Championships, and I love this list. It is definitely one of my favorite kind of like rogue anti-meta decks out there. It's so much fun to be just so turbo with this deck. You can attack with the small Roaring Moon, you can attack with the big Roaring Moon, you can attack with the Greninja, which feels amazing, and you of course have the Darkrai VSTAR in here. Now let's get to the rank 1, the number 1 deck for the month of July, and it's a deck that we'll probably see at the World Championships in Honolulu, but maybe not in a ton of high numbers. We're talking about, of course, Gardevoir EX. Yes, Gardevoir is the confirmed best deck in format right now. Apparently, it has an answer to every single deck out there. When your energy acceleration is built in with your draw engine, and then you have these crazy attackers like Screamtail and Drifloon, the synergy in this deck is just insane. I mean, it took 6 out of the 8 spots for the North American International Championships. It's definitely going to be a very strong deck. And the list you're looking at right now got 2nd place, played by Stefan Ivanov. It really just does look like Gardevoir is a deck that is never going to go away. Just like Mew VMAX, although Mew VMAX did have some hard counters printed and it still stayed meta relevant for so long, Gardevoir, it's just always good. It's just always been good. It's a deck that has insane comeback potential. One of the biggest weaknesses this deck does have is the clock. Yeah, the clock is probably going to be a big reason why some players don't end up playing it at the World Championships, because they're scared of tying. And if you tie, it's basically a loss at the World Championships. So you can't be tying with Gardevoir. So that's one of the reasons I think Gardevoir might not be as popular at the World Championships. But if you're a fast Gardevoir player who knows their lines, who's very well practiced, then you're not going to be scared at this deck, forcing you into some tie stalemates that you just don't want to have. I've also been listening to a lot of Pokemon podcasts, and I've just been hearing this the sentiment about how if you are a Gardevoir player and you're going to play another Gardevoir player, there's a good chance you might make a gentleman's agreement to just play a best of 1 to see how that goes. But yeah, comment down below what your top 2 favorite decks are right now. Mine personally are Future Box and Roaring Moon. Catch you guys in another video. Peace out.